As I told you, this is going to be a slightly different session. This is our opportunity to really showcase some very cool and impactful innovations, business model innovations, technology innovations. And before we get started with that, I wanted to introduce you to the moderator who will be introducing each of these folks. And so with that, I would like to introduce another graduate of our first cohort of the MS in Environment and Sustainability Management, Clayton Pokorny. Clayton, if you could stand. Clayton, yes, the reason for the applause is that Clayton has been instrumental in helping us put on these two events, and it would have been impossible without his help and his expertise. So Clayton has undergraduate degrees in environmental science and biology from Northwestern and came to us at Georgetown for our interdisciplinary master's degree to really supplement his science background with key business learnings. He's really passionate about a lot of different topics, conservation, sustainable agriculture, renewable energy development, as well as carbon accounting, and is looking forward to starting his professional career in sustainability soon. So with that, I'll let Clayton come up and introduce our first showcase participant.
Thank you so much, Vishal. I'll just adjust that. Welcome, everyone, to the last panel of the summit today. It's been such an honor to be here with all of you, and it's really an honor to be able to share the stage with some of these distinguished business leaders who will be speaking to you in a moment. This showcase will run slightly different than some of those panels we saw earlier, in that the four speakers will present one after another about the innovations and leadership that help their respective businesses thrive and separate those businesses from the rest of the standard in those industries. There'll be opportunities for questions after each company's presentation, as well as plenty of time to interact with our presenters at the reception after this session. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to invite Luke Barnard and Benjamin Materna on stage to talk more about GivePower, the nonprofit we heard Hayes discuss this morning. Luke is Hayes' son and has contributed on numerous GivePower treks, and Benjamin is GivePower's Vice President of Deployment, who oversees a number and multitude of global initiatives from solar water farm installations to solar impact projects and GivePower treks. Ladies and gentlemen, Luke Barnard and Benjamin Materna.
Thank you, Clayton. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Georgetown, for the invitation. It's been a great day. We've been here all day. We know we have limited time, so we'll jump right into it. So GivePower is a nonprofit. Therefore, we are mission-driven, and our mission is to electrify the world with renewable energy, providing greater health, economic, and educational opportunities to developing regions that need them the most. We do this, we execute our mission through three primary project types. We have solar impact projects. These are renewable energy-based projects, microgrids rather, powering various productive end uses. This could be ranger stations in a wildlife conservation park in Kenya, or a hospital in Haiti, or an agricultural community-owned business in Colombia. Then we have treks. Treks are also solar energy installations, often on schools or medical outposts in rural communities. But this is the program where we have the opportunity to bring our donors and volunteers with us to actually build the projects with us, often creating profound, life-changing experiences for those involved. Then we have solar water farms. These are solar-powered desalination systems, providing clean drinking water to regions in great need. We're going to be focusing on this project type throughout the presentation because it displays our technology and innovation best. First, a few accomplishments that we've been able to achieve over the last 9 years. We've installed projects in 26 countries. We are powering over 2,500 schools, 65 solar microgrids, and deployed 12 solar water farms. And we're actually bringing on a new one next week, very excited about, in Mombasa, Kenya. We've also brought almost 900 volunteers with us through the TREC program, collectively impacting or improving the lives of nearly 1.5 million people. Luke's going to set us up and explain a little why we got into the water space.
Yeah, so the scale of this is mind-numbing. With 18% of the world's population not having access to clean water, it's hard for us to imagine what it would be like to not have the magic of indoor plumbing. And not only do they not have such luxury, but they have to walk 10 or 15 miles just to collect the water from the nearest river or nearest brackish well. Now, 1.4 billion people have to do it the original way, unchanged from the beginning of mankind, because the struggle doesn't simply end at the collection of water, but it's the cleaning and making potable of it. So the environmental impacts are just as severe as the health externalities that come from harboring a fire in your home every day, as one can imagine. Now, the past few years, I've been able to spend a fair amount of time with the GivePower team in Colombia, and what I will say firsthand is that it's absolutely heart-wrenching to see a 2 or 3-year-old with rashes and lesions all over their body from bathing in contaminated water or washing their clothes in brackish wells. And fortunately, we have the technology to do so. So the Trek experience is for those who want to put their shoulder into the wheel and want to donate more of the money, but their bodies, their sweat, and see what it's like to live in a community like this. Oftentimes, it's deploying a solar water farm or living in the community, sleeping in woven hammocks in the dirt, and yeah.
Great. Thanks, Luke. So getting into a little bit of our technology, our solar water farm technology, as said before, it's the solar-powered desalination. And those words traditionally haven't gone, you don't hear those words often together because the energy requirement has been so large for desalination. But we've kind of unlocked that. Our engineering has achieved about a 4 watt-hour per liter from the ocean. And that's put that in comparison, that's about half an hour of a high-efficiency LED light bulb. So making it possible. And we have 3 models in operation to date. Our largest we call the Max, and this can produce 75,000 liters of drinking water a day, supporting a community of over 37,000 people. The next 2 models are the Moby and the Moby Plus. The Moby is an ocean water system. The Moby Plus is a brackish water system. It's obviously a containerized solution, so it's more rapidly deployable and can be moved if the situation or the needs change. And they can produce up to 15,000 liters a day, supporting a population of about 7,500. It's worth mentioning that GivePower does all the engineering in-house, both on the project level, site specifics, the hydrogeology that goes into designing these systems and the projects, but also the product itself. We even do the manufacturing of the unique element components of these systems in our facility in Austin. I think it's unusual for a nonprofit to be so vertically integrated, but we saw the efficiencies to be had, and we saw the gap in the market, so we couldn't resist. But the innovation doesn't stop at the hardware. We have a truly sustainable operating model once the systems launch. So we're not just depleting charitable dollars and leaving a system to be broken in a few months or years after it's installed, leaving the community in worse shape than we found it. But once the system is launched, we are committed to owning and operating it for 20 plus years. We hire and train local staff, creating long-term, well-paid employment opportunities. We actually sell the water at the lowest cost possible that the community can afford, but also covers our OpEx. Again, for the sustainability of the project. To go further, since we are generating clean water with clean energy, offsetting the need to burn biomass to boil the water, we're generating high-value carbon credits, which we could capitalize on and get to another tier of financial sustainability.
So we don't have enough time to cover all of these, but just to highlight a few of these kind of incredible impacts that come from these is one is disease prevention, right? Things like cholera, waterborne disease are no longer as severe of a threat to a community because of an improved water source. And two, I'll kind of tie in the job opportunities and the economic development together, but it's that one, job opportunities, like Benjamin said, are provided within these solar water farms where locals are trained and they work there for a long amount of time. And then two, for the economic development is it's providing opportunities for local entrepreneurs to set up shop by opening up kiosks kind of in the general area of the solar water farm as that last mile distribution of the water, right? So we take the tuk-tuks or the trucks that have the fresh, clean, potable water. It goes to the kiosk, and they buy it from the price that we have set. They have a small margin and minimal markup, and then they distribute it throughout the smaller communities where we can't reach.
Excellent. I believe we have a video queued up.
Can you imagine a world without water even for a few hours? I know the feeling of being thirsty for days. Without drinking water, people are dying.
Earth is blue, 71% of it at least, but only 3% is fresh water. And of that 3%, only about a sixth is accessible. Today, almost 2 billion people lack access to safe, secure, clean drinking water.
These communities have to drink either brackish water from contaminated boreholes or dirty, untreated water full of virus and bacteria.
Water scarcity is a hard problem to solve. How do we do something different, and how do we provide a clean water source?
Looking to a more sustainable source, the ocean, GivePower is transforming access to clean water for thousands in regions that suffer most.
The GivePower solar water farm is a solar-powered desalination system that is designed to treat seawater and turn it into drinking water for communities around the world that lack access to a clean drinking water source.
The system produces up to 70,000 liters of water a day, which is enough to support 35,000 people.
There's never been a project like this. The locals are so happy, they're excited with the new technology.
Maji imesaidia kwa community yote kulingana na magonjwa.
Thank you!
Nous constatons que tendance dans le cas typhoïde liée à la baisse.
In addition to providing fresh water for thousands daily, each solar water farm creates its own ecosystem of opportunity, from the local workers who maintain and operate each system to the large and small local distributors.
I can say the business is good. GivePower has helped us a lot as a family. Naona ni vizuri kuliko venye ilikuwa hapo mbeleni. Yeah, life has changed.
Fresh, affordable, sustainable water out of the ocean. These are things that a few years ago people said could not be done. This is a real liftoff point for us. This is a chance for us to scale, deploy these technologies globally quickly.
We've been able to have such impact, create such change. That for me is so fulfilling.
I want people that are really committed to impact to recognize that together we can genuinely solve the problem.
GivePower, I feel like they are mobilizing the whole world. This is how we can have a better future.
There's a lot of footage of our friends in there, and I get the chills from some footage from the 2021 earthquake in Haiti. We actually have a system on the island of La Gonave, and we're the only freshwater producers in the country right after that earthquake. Yeah, it's powerful. So we want to leave you with our commitment. We're committed to continue to innovate. We're committed to create hundreds of local jobs, and in our mission to build enough systems to provide 8 billion liters of fresh, clean drinking water over the next 20 years. Thank you. Do we have Q&A? No? We have time for Q&A? Great.
So the water comes from ocean water?
Correct.
So,
and in some cases, we also have inland brackish water wells, boreholes.
So
yes.
for ocean water, is the majority of the source that you're providing for these underdeveloped communities. So our drinking water are like fresh water from mountains and like streams. So is there a reason that we're not drinking ocean water because it's less clean than fresh water? And if that's the case, are you only providing like ocean water because it's able to sustainable for these underdeveloped countries, but it's not necessarily more healthy? Obviously more healthy than what they have currently, but still a lower standard than the rest of the world.
I think that's a great question. It's very site specific on what the resources are available, right? If there's a fresh water source like a mountain stream or low depth aquifer that they could pull from that was a better option than desalinating the ocean, then we would suggest doing that, and we would either support doing that or they'd find their own solution. But our water, after taking it from the ocean and desalinating, it is as fresh as any of our mountain streams. And yeah, I mean, our TDS is very low and very healthy and clean. So there's no compromise in that sense.
Okay, so then just picking back off of that then, there's right now, I think only one brand, Kohan or something like that, that uses ocean water for our bottled water that they sell. So then from that, would you start selling and bottling ocean water to sell here for our consumers if it's that clean or fresh?
I mean,
well, I guess this is something completely different than like a nonprofit.
That's a great commercial spin-off idea. But we are for nonprofit and trying to just achieve impact in those that need it most.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think in the sake of time, we'll keep moving if that's all right.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Leon.
Quickly.
No, watching the video, which was amazing. You have a distribution center. That was one of the things I was really interested in. Now that you have water, how is that kind of factoring in? Because the biggest challenge are these people walking long distances for water. Are you now going from a distribution point, I guess, close to the coast and going inland? Like how is that working?
Yeah, good question. Also a good question. So last mile water distribution is a challenge. We try to address it. We also try to empower locals to start their own businesses to kind of help get it that last mile, that very last mile. But we also own and operate Bowsers of our own, or these big water trucks, to get it to these other kiosks, other businesses that prop up.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Luke and Benjamin, for your insights. Let's thank them one more time. All right, next I have the pleasure of introducing Christie Gamble. After a long tenure at Carbon Cure working on decarbonizing cement, Christie now works at Cloverly, a two-sided web platform which provides visibility into both the buyer or the demand and supply side of the voluntary carbon credit market. Christie has an MBA from Dalhousie University.
But that sounded very Canadian way of pronouncing it.
Yeah, Dalhousie, and lives in Regina, Canada, where she also competes on the World Curling Tour. So, ladies and gentlemen, the multi-talented Christie Gamble.
All right. I am very Canadian. That's where the curling comes from. I just have to say, by the way, that was an incredible presentation and innovation that you have. It's really tugged at the heartstrings. And I don't know if anyone else knows this, but I just found out that Luke is 17. That's impressive. You know, a lot of time you hear in sustainability talks, people will say like, oh, let's do it for the children. And Luke, in the meantime, is going, let's do it for me. I'm kidding. I hope you don't mind me teasing you. I will say that I do find that it's young people like yourself and Clayton and other students that I've met around here that give me a lot of hope that we're going to figure this out. So thank you for that. Okay, I'm here to talk about Cloverly. Cloverly is the platform for climate action. It's digital infrastructure for the voluntary carbon market. This is a technology showcase, so I'm going to demonstrate or just kind of give you a little bit of insight into the technology. But I first want to talk about why this matters. So to give you a little bit of insight into this, I want to share my personal story here. About 10 years ago, shortly after I had completed my MBA at Dalhousie, which by the way was a focus in corporate social responsibility, which is now dates me apparently. I joined a company that was a startup of a couple of people in a beer fridge that were basically intent on trying to decarbonize the concrete industry, cement and concrete. Cement's responsible for 7% of the world's CO2 emissions. We developed a technology that introduced CO2 into concrete where it permanently mineralized that CO2. So we're turning concrete into a global infrastructure for mineralized CO2. And we had a lot of success over the years. Over the decade that I was there, became the global leader in CO2 utilization. Today, if you look around DC, the majority of concrete made in DC now has mineralized CO2, which is really cool. Amazon's HQ2 was a really great example of an entirely low carbon type of building development. So here's the thing though, about 5 years ago, our business hit this inflection point where we were able to generate a carbon credit that we could sell to companies and to individuals who are climate action oriented to help concrete producers take on the costs of mineralizing CO2 in their concrete. And when that happened, it became a game changer for the industry. All of a sudden, this carbon mineralization technology became accessible for everyday concrete producers because the carbon market was creating a financial stream that supported that industry. So through that experience, I became very much a believer that the carbon market, when it's done properly, can really do what it's intended to do, which is to finance innovation that's necessary to decarbonize. So that's where we get to where we are today. So beginning of the year, I decided to pivot my focus to support the voluntary carbon market. It's an industry that has a lot of challenges, but a lot of opportunities. So how do we scale climate action? We scale climate action by creating more demand for low carbon solutions and creating an infrastructure that allows the payments, the support, the finance of these low carbon innovations. So this brings me to Cloverly. Cloverly is the digital infrastructure that is scaling that climate action through the voluntary carbon market. I'll talk a little bit about what that is and how we're doing it. But ultimately what we're doing is creating the ability to offset now. I'm not sure why the F's are gone, but we're offsetting now. What's important to understand is that, first of all, Cloverly is built on climate science. So we have applied a very rigorous risk management framework to look at all the different kinds of carbon credit generating projects that exist across the globe and help to identify and filter out which credits are actually supporting climate impact, delivering on that carbon savings that is intended by the project, and which ones are not. Because one of the challenges that's facing the carbon market right now is that not all carbon credits are created equally, and unfortunately there are a lot of low quality type of carbon credits that are giving the industry a bad reputation. So did you know that there are over 17,000 carbon credit generating projects that exist across the globe today? These projects are each issuing millions of credits. There are over 1 billion credits that we can see that are accessible. And a carbon credit is really just the asset. It's like a financial instrument. It is defined as a metric ton of CO2 that is avoided or removed from the atmosphere. But the key thing to understand about the carbon market is that even though all carbon credits are 1 ton of CO2 avoided or removed, not all carbon credits are created equally. What we are doing is we are monitoring and looking at all of the carbon credits that we have insight into, over 17,000 credits. So these credits are being made through different types of projects all over the globe, as you can see. And we're really looking at what the quality and risk factors are associated with those credits. We're applying a risk management framework. So we're identifying the risks that can be attached to a credit, analyzing the mechanisms through which the carbon credit is being generated, looking at the monitoring and reporting and verification systems, and really just measuring, how do we know that this carbon savings is actually occurring? How do we know that it's occurring at the same scale as what the carbon credit developer is saying it is? What other kinds of impacts are being had by this project, both good and bad? Maybe if we're looking at like a deforestation, an avoided deforestation project, for example, and we've saved an area of land, what if the developers or the deforestation company just goes across the street and starts logging the forest across the street? Have we really done anything positive here? So these are the types of things that we're looking at to avoid the negative externalities. But then there are also a lot of positive externalities, positive co-benefits that can be attached with credits. And the last presentation gave a really good example about how you can really support local communities through projects that are generating carbon savings. So with all that in mind, what we have done is created a marketplace where we have filtered out the low-quality credits and really highlighted the type of credits that we believe are genuinely delivering positive climate impact. And through this marketplace, as you can see, it kind of just looks like an Amazon, but for carbon credits, where any carbon credit, in order to be listed on our marketplace, passes very rigorous risk and quality management criteria. And then we work with a number of companies to bring those credits to consumers and businesses in different kinds of ways. We have a portfolio management process where we'll work with companies who are looking to make significant investments in the carbon market and help build a portfolio of diversified credits that really expands the impact. We also have an API type of software plugin that will plug into different types of digital platforms to provide consumers with the ability to offset the emissions of their activity, whether it's a flight or a retail purchase of some sort. And then we also have a storefront, which is kind of a software that is very flexible for meeting different types of needs and ultimately bringing the marketplace to businesses. So all of these products, what they're really just intended to do is to simplify and bring a lot of ease and transparency to the process of supporting carbon credits. I genuinely believe that we need a lot of individuals and businesses who take accountability for the carbon footprint of their activities to then support carbon credit projects that will generate carbon savings to start to contribute to positive climate impact. And apparently we're not moving forward anymore, so I guess we're just going to, oh, there we go. Is that it? There we go. Okay, so Cloverly has been trusted by a number of leading organizations. As you can see, we're working with some really big names in the space and supported by a lot of investors. And, oh boy, there we go. And ultimately, at the end of the day, this is really just all about carbon impact. I'm a very big believer in thinking of carbon credits and carbon offsetting not as the solution, but really as taking accountability for the carbon that is emitted by individuals, by businesses, and saying, you know what, every ton of carbon that I'm emitting into the atmosphere has a cost associated with it. I don't have to pay for it, but society does. In fact, the US federal government has declared the cost of carbon to be $51 per ton. Canadian federal government declares it's $261 per ton. A little bit of a difference there, might have something to do with politics, who knows. Ultimately, what we do know, though, is that every ton of CO2 that goes into the atmosphere results in an impact that's going to impact human health, infrastructure, climate events, and these are impacts that we need to take accountability for and find ways to mitigate. So by taking accountability and then using that price that's associated with the carbon credits to fund climate innovation, support conservation projects that can protect protect forest land areas all over the world, we're doing something good. And so I think if we can continue to support the voluntary carbon market to bring the good out of the market, we're going to end up seeing an acceleration in the climate action. So with that, with Cloverly, it's all about trusting that carbon credits investment is delivering real climate action. Excited to open up to questions.
And once again, any questions, you can come down to the mics on the sides. Don't be shy.
I see a couple coming. Okay, go ahead. I think you're first.
So you talked about Cloverly having already curated the marketplace with all of these scientifically researched projects. What is happening with all of the other rest in the market? What are we doing about that?
Good question. So first of all, our marketplace is always evolving. We are constantly monitoring and assessing different credits. And a lot of credits, what we find right now is it's a very rigorous sort of criteria in order to be listed. But there's a lot of credits that are developing the necessary monitoring, reporting, verification tools to meet that criteria. So as more credits create that infrastructure, we're adding more credits to the space, as well as just developing relationships with more suppliers who exist across. It's amazing how many new credits are generated regularly, and that's important because that's what's happening. There's new innovation, more credits that can support it. So with all the credits that are not listed, the intention here is to drive demand for those that are demonstrating the climate action. Hopefully what that means is that those who are not listed will do more to make sure that they are actually meeting that climate action and demonstrating it. And then ultimately those credits that are not meeting that criteria, there are a number out there that are just not good. Hopefully that eventually filters out of the market.
Hi, I'm Isaac. I'm the second-year MBA student here at Georgetown. My question for you is, there are other companies doing this like Silvera, Pachama, a few of these. How does yours differentiate from the rest of them?
Sure. One of the things that's very confusing about the voluntary carbon market is the fact that because it's so new, there have been a lot of companies, like Cloverly included, that have come into the space with different types of solutions and platforms. So the companies that you mentioned, for example, Silvera is a rating agency. There are a couple of key rating agencies, 4 major ones, that are kind of like a Moody's, that are looking at the different carbon credits and creating an A rating on it. What we're doing is taking in that information and expanding on it. So we believe we have a more rigorous and comprehensive framework for looking at the quality assessment of these credits. We're also looking at a lot more, so it's much more holistic. And most importantly, we're creating that infrastructure to actually purchase the credits. So like a rating agency will simply say whether it's a good or a bad credit, but it's not providing that ability to purchase. Other, like Pachama is a project developer. They are basically working with carbon credits innovators and helping them to bring carbon credits to the market. So we're supporting organizations like Pachama by creating that digital marketplace where the buyers and the sellers can come together and just making it easier for companies like Pachama to be able to actually sell their credits. So a lot of new things happening in the space. It's very confusing, and one of the things the carbon market really will benefit from is a little bit more clarity and awareness among just everyday, just everyone in terms of what on earth is happening and how do I get involved. So.
Thank you.
Awesome. Is there one more question? Yeah, let's take it.
I guess what did you most think was important, or what did you glean from the commodities market that you take with you, and then what don't?
That's a great question. So, one of the things that is clearly needed in the voluntary carbon market is more regulation in terms of helping to create metrics to identify the quality standards of, and the risk associated with any kinds of credits. What's also really important is understanding more so what do companies do with it. So what's happening right now is a lot of times companies will purchase these credits and use it to offset against their emissions to claim carbon neutrality. That can be very flawed. There's a lot of developing knowledge about what can and can't be considered carbon neutrality or net zero. So there's a lot more regulation that's really required around that, and that's where looking at the carbon market as in the same way as a commodities market, figuring out what kind of regulation and infrastructure can be built into it.
Thank you. Okay, awesome. Help me in thanking Christie for hers. And last but not least, I would like to introduce Dr. Lacey Pyle from Arva Intelligence. Dr. Pyle has a PhD in geological and earth sciences from Rice University in Texas. She is a key contributor on Arva's expanding research efforts around optimization within agriculture, bringing soil science and data engineering together to help model more sustainable agricultural systems. So to tell us a bit more about Arva, help me in welcoming Dr. Lacey Pyle.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Can y'all hear me? Okay, great. Those are going to be some tough acts to follow, but I will try my best. So I am Lacey Pyle. I am a soil scientist, and I actually lead our data science and research efforts at Arva Intelligence. So it's much more common for me to be sitting in front of a computer working on models than being in front of a group of people speaking, but I will try my best, and I really want to thank you all for giving me this opportunity to come and tell you about some of the work that we're doing. Okay, so Arva Intelligence. We are an agricultural technology company. So we combine data and machine learning in order to optimize sustainable and profitable farming practices in order to provide growers the opportunity to both to engage with carbon offsetting and setting markets. We have from the beginning tried to put growers first in order to help them create their own sustainability management plans, as well as provide them easier access to carbon markets in this environment that we're in now, where, as our last speaker said, there's a lot of different registries. Voluntary carbon market is very confusing. There's not regulation. It's really hard to navigate as an individual. So we try to help clarify some of that by providing tools that growers can use to engage. So a quick example of the tool, our primary tool offering is our software platform, which we call CropForce. So CropForce helps connect those growers to the carbon market. This process consists of 4 steps. So the first one is when we engage with a grower, they will upload their field boundaries, which is basically just the spatial delineation of their either crop or pasture lands that they work with. And then using that field boundary, we aggregate the farmer's data, environmental data, and management data into one platform that we can use. Then step 2 is optimizing those data streams in order to produce better sustainability and profitability plans for farmers based on the field-specific data that we've already collected. So this can include optimizing what kind of crops to grow, what kind of crop rotation to follow, as well as developing an optimal nutrient plan, which is a lot like precision agriculture. If you're unfamiliar with that term, precision agriculture basically means the adoption of advanced technologies that are available today, particularly in the US. And for example, in the case of fertilizer, we actually have such refined instruments these days that we can fertilize at the plant level within a field, which is really insane to me. So being able to be this very specific within a particular field in terms of our fertilizer placement reduces the amount of fertilizer we're wasting on, say, areas of the field that just are never going to be productive no matter what. This reduction in fertilizer means reduction in costs. It means reduction in greenhouse gases from the nitrous oxide that comes from excess fertilizer. And it also means reduction in other negative externalities like unclean water downstream from erosion. Okay, so step 3 is then we quantify the impacts of those sustainability plans that we've given to the grower, and as well as environmental co-benefits like the reduction in the improvement of downstream water. And lastly, we use our platform in order to verify and validate those claims based on the data that we have, and then get the farmer paid. Okay, so this is a workflow of our basic business strategy. So on the right, there's basically 3 main products that we're trying to sell to buyers. That is carbon offset credits, which we've talked a lot about over the past few days. Also scope 3 emission reductions, and then sustainability claims, which are a little bit more specific to agriculture, but are growing in importance for a lot of our clients, and basically include things beyond carbon. So it can be water conservation, biodiversity improvements, that sort of thing. And that's something that people are really starting to pay attention to. The kind of buyers that we engage with are companies that have their own internal ESG goals and want to make regenerative agriculture a part of their portfolio. But it also includes companies that need to reduce their scope 3 emissions in order to get to their net zero goals, because agricultural products are a part of their supply chain. So think of any kind of consumer packaged good that you buy in the grocery store. All of them have to engage at the grower level in order to reduce their carbon footprint. So our general strategy is we work with channel partners in order to onboard our growers. A channel partner is someone who has a previously existing business relationship with growers in the US or anywhere. And I'll provide an example of that relationship later on. But they help us get the growers engaged and help us educate them to understand what different sustainability practices are. Once they're onboarded, then we do the work of identifying the carbon opportunities, gathering that data together so that we can turn it into a carbon offset, and then turning that carbon offset into a financial incentive for the grower, the original grower, from the buyer. Okay, so looking at the part that we do a little bit closer, we have a very data-heavy approach. So the graphic on the left, which might be hard to read, is a kind of non-exhaustive list of the kind of data that we ingest to get to our end goals. It includes remote sensing, public databases like those produced from the USDA and NRCS, which are very comprehensive in the US, as well as farmer-specific and environmental data and farmer operation data, which ends up being really, really valuable in order to prove that the project is doing what it said it did. So some of this data is actually already collected by other companies just as a matter of business. So Arva has built quite a few APIs to interface with those companies' pre-existing databases and pull it automatically. So there's very little that the grower actually has to do in order for us to generate these credits. As an example, we partner with My John Deere, which is automatically pulling tractor data from all of their growers who have those machines. So all of this data goes into our software and is used as inputs in our machine learning models, which are basically trained for two goals. So one is, of course, carbon offsets and insets. And we've gotten a lot of traction in the market so far with the fact that our data is very field specific. So in general, agriculture prior to now has kind of relied on county-wide or country-wide averages and estimates, and we actually go and look at each individual field in order to get to our final numbers. So that's an obvious one, but we also have this side benefit that ends up helping growers maintain their day-to-day operations and stay engaged with our platform. And that is our agronomic predictions. So we can not only visualize all of the farmers' data, which is really fun for them, like farmers love data, but we can also give them better advice on, say, what kind of crop, what kind of seed they should be using next year, if there's been some development in the field, how their fertilizer plans should be adjusted, and things of that nature. So to kind of show you a snapshot of those processes, these are images from our software. On the left is a visual of one of our farmers' fields. And it's been separated into what we call Arva ground types, or AGTs, which are produced by our machine learning models. Each AGT is basically organized into, so it's essentially based on all the data that we have integrated and ends up in a, well, in my field we call it soil strata, but a chunk of soil that, given the same practice, should respond similarly across the entire farm. So like all the areas in red are gonna have a similar response to both yield and carbon based on the farmer's practices. So this makes it very easy, much easier for the grower to manage their practices at the subfield level. On the right is a tool that we've built specifically for the carbon markets. This is our scenario planning tool. And this allows the grower to simulate what might happen on every individual field in terms of regenerative practices. So what would happen here if I adopted reduced tillage, or if I use slightly less fertilizer, or use a different injection method of that fertilizer. So we show them not only the impact in carbon, but also the dollar amount they might expect to gain on a per field basis. Okay, and this is the promised example of how our business partnerships work. So Nestle Purina is the buyer in this scenario, and they are trying to source sustainable rice from the southeastern US. The channel partner is Riceland Foods, who is the rice mill that actually processes most of the rice grain in that area of the US. So our partnership with the rice mill allows us to both track and encourage adoption of sustainable practices within their grower base, which then Nestle is able to buy and pay for those practices. So Nestle Purina, for Nestle Purina, we're tracking both the carbon impact of the various practices of their rice farmers, but also the water as well, which is something that Nestle's been very interested in historically. And as a result of this data tracking process, Nestle Purina is able to market their cat and dog food as more product of regenerative ag, more sustainable, and try to work towards meeting their Scope 3 emission goals. Okay, so this is most of my team, like none of us work alone. But if you're interested in getting in touch with any of these people, I'm happy to connect you. There's a fair number of us now. And other than that, thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pyle. Unfortunately, we won't have time to take questions now, but feel free to connect offline and at the reception with Dr. Pyle. And give me one final round of applause for all of our presenters during this showcase. Thank you so much. And so please, it has truly been a pleasure to speak to all of you. And before I leave the podium, I'd like to take one final moment to thank Vishal for his leadership and planning and for moderating today's momentous event. We wouldn't be able to do it, and we're all without you, and we're also grateful as your students and for your leadership. Thank you for Vishal. Let's give him a round of applause.
Okay, but I'll try to make my thanks really short. But first of all, I'll thank all of you in the audience, all the students, and especially really good to see all previous students and alums from 2 to 5 to 10 years ago. Always great that you're coming back and connecting with our McDonough community, as always. So maybe a round of hands for everyone. My special thanks to all the speakers for this panel, and especially to Luke to making it look so easy presenting in front of this big audience. So thank you, Luke, and others as well. And thanks to all the other speakers and panelists all throughout the day. Hopefully you guys learned a lot. And then beyond just that, I hope you'll all join us in our reception, which is happening next with some food and drink, back where lunch was on the 4th floor in Fisher Colloquium. And I hope you get to meet each other and really build connections that will hope to scale the impact further. I'll turn it over to Evan to tell us any other directions we may need to know for the reception.
Just one minor correction. The reception will actually be outside under the tent on the 1st floor. So make sure you don't go all the way up 4 flights of stairs. No worries. And so make sure that you've got your drink wristband. We'll also have some student volunteers that have been helping out today, ushering you to the right spot and getting a wristband if you've forgotten. But please enjoy, and thank you all for being here today.